Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen. Today is the day we are going to take our first rib primal out of the dry ager. We're going to try to butcher it up and then we're going to give it a cook. So this is what it looks like. I'm first going to weigh it. I'm going to see how much weight we lost. So we started out with 7.87 kilos and we're now at 6.89. So over 50 days, this lost 1 kilo. And yes, originally I wanted to do this at the 30-day mark. Life got in the way. We've gone out to 50 days instead of the 30 that I was hoping for. So it's gone a little bit longer, but I don't think we'll see that much difference in the flavor. And what I'm going to do is just push out all of the other ones by the same amount so that we're still spaced at the same distance. Okay, let's start breaking this down. As you can see on this side, it's dry, not too dry. And it's completely clean. There's no mold on this side whatsoever. If I flip it over though, you can see there's just the beginning of a little bit of mold here. Just a little bit of fuzz. And there's no smell. It's neutral. It doesn't smell like anything. So there's no funky blue cheese kind of smell or anything like that. It smells neutral. It doesn't smell like anything. So I don't have the proper knives to do this really. I should probably have a boning knife and trim this off of the entire rack first and then slice it. I think what I'm going to do is, this is a 3 rib. 1, 2, 3 ribs. I'm just going to cut between the ribs and then trim it up and make it look nice. There's also these 3 little bones here on the back that I need to cut off first. So let's get to pulling off these little bones on the back. I was going to have Jamie come in and help me do this, but we're in a higher level of lockdown today than we've been for a while. So there we go. There's one. Okay, so first cut between the ribs. Let's see how I do. Long, confident strokes. Now it is a little bit dry, but it's not as difficult to cut through as I thought it might be. Last stroke. What do you think? What's it going to look like? Ooh, it looks beautiful. So my butchery skills aren't that great, but I've got 3 more in the fridge over there. They will get better, and you'll get better over time. It's just like everything. The first time you do anything, it's not going to be fantastic. So I'm going to cut... the middle steak is the one that I'm going to cook today. The 2 end steaks, I'm going to trim them up and vacuum seal them. And that's something that we will freeze and use later to test against the ones that come out of the fridge at, I don't know what the dates are now. Okay, so I'm going to trim up around the bone here, a little bit of this fat off the outside, and I'll get these other 2 trimmed up as well. Okay, so my butchering skills, not so great. You know, my thicknesses aren't fantastic. No matter how many times I go in and work with my friends who are butchers and they show me what to do hands-on and show me, unless you do it every day, you just don't get good at it. You really don't. So if you're going to do this at home, do your best. Don't worry too much about what it looks like. It's probably going to be fine. In the end, I ended up with 2 of these major rib steaks. These are 1.5 kilos each. And then I ended up with a couple of little weeknight steaks, which are fine, sort of on a Tuesday night, throw it on the grill, really easy peasy. I'll vacuum seal those as well. And then I ended up with this mess of trim. The really bad stuff went into the digester. It's gone. This stuff is still really good, and I'm going to grind that up for burgers and grind it up, put it in meatloaf, shepherd's pie, actually cottage pie, meat pies, any of those sorts of things. There's still a lot of really good beef in there mixed with the fat. Okay, so I'm set up outside with a couple of cameras and I've got the Blazing Bull going. Now the Blazing Bull is an overhead infrared cooker. essentially what you find in high-end steak places. It is the same as a salamander, and the company that makes this invented the technology in the 1930s. This is a solid piece of kit, and one of our viewers who lives in Toronto, works for the company that makes this, Schwank, he dropped it off and said, Glenn, maybe you want to give it a try with some of your dry-aged beef. And I said, yes, of course I would. So, the eagle-eyed amongst you have said, you didn't season it, and you're right, I didn't season this piece of beef. Because let's be frank, that's more of a small roast than a steak. And this gets so hot, 1500 degrees Fahrenheit, that anything you put on the outside, any seasoning like pepper or any rub, is gonna get burnt and taste bitter. So I'm gonna season it afterwards, just before it rests. Now, I'm gonna put this into the blazing bowl. And I'm gonna try to get it inside. And I'm gonna cook it 1 minute on each side, flip it. And then after 60 seconds, flip it again. And I'm gonna go back and forth so that each side gets about 3 minutes. I might go 4 minutes. And then I'm gonna put a temperature probe in it and we're gonna cook it slow. Drop this down. We'll take it out. It's got a little bit of color, not too much. I'm gonna turn it over. And another minute. Now, there's a tray underneath that catches all of the drippings. And in there, I'm gonna put some thyme and a lump of butter. And we're just gonna let that melt while we finish cooking the steak. Okay, so I've flipped it a few times. We've got a really good looking crust on the outside. Just gonna deal with that bone for a moment. So I'm gonna pull this out. This is nowhere near cooked. There's no way. If this was a regular steak, probably be almost cooked. But I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna move the cooking grate all the way to the top. I'm gonna pull out the drip tray at the bottom. And now we're gonna place the piece of beef on top of that butter and thyme that's in the bottom. And slide that back in. And I'm gonna let it cook in there under a little bit lower temperature. What's happening is this grate is sort of holding back some of that intense heat from the infrared cooker. And while it's cooking on this lower level, I will turn it over probably 3 or 4 times. Sort of to partially baste it in the butter and that juice, because there's also the fat that came out of the steak itself that's in that drip pan. And also just to make sure that it doesn't cook too quickly from one side. And it's not cooking very quickly at all. I think the outside temperature is working against me. Well, I know it is. And the thickness of that beef. We're up to 71 degrees Fahrenheit right now, and it's been about 10 minutes. Okay, that alarm tells me it is time to take this inside. So, turn the blazing bowl off. Turn off the alarm. And I'm going to take this inside. I'm going to salt it at this point and let it sit and rest before we slice into it. I got to tell you, this looks beautiful. Whoa.
Hey, Glenn. Hey, friends. That, my friend, smells great.
Smells great. Looks great. Okay.
It's not dating. It's not like a lamb chop where you might just,
lamb chop popsicles that you get at events. Yeah, no, that's not that. Okay, so let's cut this open and see what it's like. Okay, so I tied this up. Get the strings off. And cut this off the bone first. And let's see. Julie wants a smaller piece. Now I salted this after I took it off of the blazing bowl and put pepper on it.
okay.
I didn't do it beforehand. And there's also the butter sauce with the, if you want to put some of that on.
Okay, now it's done a little bit more than we usually would do this, but I guess that's just timing.
It is cooked more than I would want it to be cooked. If anybody out there looks at my Instagram, you would have seen on the day that I was cooking this that I had all the cameras set up outside and all of the other stuff set up outside. And so I'm cooking and filming all on my own. So, you know, sometimes things slip through the...
But that's got a lot of flavor to it.
It does have a lot of flavor to it. And it's not any... So a lot of people think that dry-aged beef has a real funky blue cheese flavor. Do you get any of that?
No.
I don't get any of that. Okay, so let's try a little bit of this sauce on top.
A little bit, or, you know, the Glen amount.
The Glen amount.
Careful, that's gonna be a bit trippy. So that's distinctly different,
Yes.
right? Because you've now got the herbs and the butter, and that adds a whole other flavor to it.
Whole
Both
other layer of, yeah.
It depends what you're looking for, right? And what you like.
So on the whole, I think what we got after 50 days in the dry ager was just a little bit bigger beef flavor. Mm-hmm. And I think that on the next cook, if I can have the people over that I wanted to have over to help me do everything, which we can't right now because we're in a lockdown, I would pull it off a little bit earlier, and there wouldn't be half an hour between, you know, and trying to do everything. So I would cook it a little bit less, but that's a fantastic piece of meat.
It is very good. But it's
Fantastic.
like the size of a small roast.
It is a small roast.
It is, you know, days of eating.
So, on first blush, I would say that's pretty good. I'm liking that. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.